Okay, here we have the 1925 Indian Prince. This is the front end right here. I've just given its last coat of clear coat right now. This particular Indian red is Valspar enamel, and what I have done is I have given it a flash time of 40 minutes and then clear coated it. It's the only particular system you can do this with because Valspar, which is House of Color, built their original paint system of DuPont. So a lot of people might not know that you can actually paint single stage enamel and put the clear coat over the top of it. I don't believe you can do this with any of the other paint systems. Okay, so this particular red was one of the original Valspar colors that they had in their color books with a slight bit of a change to it to get this particular red. I'm sure that in 1925 they ran out of paint on a Friday afternoon, just like we would today, and I'm sure some of the guys back in the Indian factory probably just mixed whatever they had. I've seen quite a number of original 25, 26 Indian Princes, and their colors vary from this particular red to a cherry red to a maroon, a deep dark maroon. We have some UL stock oilers right here. So what I had to do was clean the hole out and put them in with a little tiny bit of grease and then tape them up with the fine line tape. Because trying to put them in there with paint, if they're painted first, it just causes problems. You can chip paint, crack paint. So there wasn't enough grease around the edges of these little oilers that would really affect anything. I wasn't going to get no residue kicked back from the grease in my paint where it would fisheye. The 25 Prince front end is unique because overall from top to bottom it's about 1.5 inches shorter than a 26 to 27, 28. Also, the 25 has the original straight casting, which is to bring the fender up higher off the wheel. It's actually quite difficult to paint these little front ends. There's a lot of angles here that you need to get into. There's a lot of different casting bits right up in there. All of these tiny crevices. You can see there's Indian codes right up there, up under there in that casting. So it's quite a difficult little front end to paint. You got to get the pressure right. I tend to spray it in a lot more lower pressure so I can get right into all the castings. You can see there's a nice gloss on that clear and everything. So there's not one little nook or cranny that I've missed. You can still buy these new all stock oilers right here. You can still buy them for Indian. They're the correct little flip lid ones with the spring loaded on them. Now what I want to show you right here is this casting right here, this spring casting. One of the problems you'll find that if you get any paint on there, you cannot get that spring coiled back on there at all. So what I've done is I've left it in the black etch and painted around here, and the spring finishes about there. So it will just be a black spring, which was factory, with the black inner. Okay, she's pretty glossy right there. Nice and glossy. Let's have a good look at it, top to bottom. No orange peel whatsoever. If you can lay that acrylic enamel, the Valspar, really well with a Seda. Still use an old school Seda 3000. Get the job done. You can get it down to about 15 psi to where it's barely just blowing that single stage enamel on it, and it leaves absolutely no orange peel. So when you go to spray the clear coat, it's absolutely flat. You would not even need to wet sand this, color sand this, or even buff it in any way, shape, or form. It is that glossy, you couldn't get any better than that. Even if you tried to wet sand it with 2000 and then tried to hand polish it, you wouldn't even get any better than that. So what I also do is I fill these particular holes up right here with earplugs. That's to keep the material down so that when you spray in there, you don't plug everything up there with material, and that way you have problems getting the bolts in. Over here we have the original casting for the neck. Let's have a look at this right now. Here's the original casting for the neck. Nice and glossy. You can see the shine on it right there. That's the casting. And that was with just a single coat of single stage primer, wet sanded to 800. And then sprayed with the enamel and then clear coated. You can still see that there's not even enough material that's being built up there. This right in here, you can still see the Indian S stamping in the casting right there. So that is the neck casting piece right there. Put that back there to dry for till tomorrow. Back to this front end. One of the other problems the Indian prints would occur too would be that this particular casting right here would just get chewed out if they didn't keep up with the bearings and tighten the bearings correctly. They would just chew this whole casting out and just flog them all out. All of these codes are different codes right here. You got the number 9, the S for Indian Scout. They represent the little S in the box right there. They all have something to do with the shift and the time that they will cast. It's quite a few hours just in laying the color on this. You have to spray it at a really, really low pressure to be able to get into all these nooks and crannies. There's all of these concaves and convexes way up in here, and it just goes on and on. That even though for a single motorcycle, as an Indian, they're still just as complicated to do as any other model Indian. It's definitely a labor of love. So now that this front end is now complete, tomorrow it'll go back to the machine that it's going to be affixed to. This is the last part of the project right here, is this front end. It'll be ready for assembly now, where it will have the spring. All the bolts have been machined. These holes have been upgraded from 3/8 to 1/2 inch with a step in them, because they all the prints front ends right here flog out right there, and it wears the casting out. So this was recentered and then re-drilled at 1/2 inch with the step down for the dog link right there in the front end. Give you a nice shot from start to finish right here all the way down. This particular front end was very cherry to begin with. It was off a very original bike that was already unrestored. It's been in dry storage all its life. From about 1946, this particular bike sat in the rafters of a barn. It was driven and ridden during the war, and then subsequently after the war it was just left in the roof of a barn. The owner of this particular 25 Indian Prince has had it since the 70s, most likely when they weren't worth anything. I believe he paid $70 for the bike in the 70s off the original owner. So I hope you like this footage of this front end right now. Okay, well, stay tuned, and I'll do some more tabulated data information on the prints with some more videos.